Hey Noah.
Hello, hello, how are you?
Living in Korea has been awesome. Getting a job was a little bit interesting.
But it worked out. It worked out better for me than it did for her, but ultimately it worked out very well for the both of us.
For both of us, yeah. But I think it was a little bit interesting in the beginning because the two of us started applying for a job here in Korea at the same time, and we had credentials. We both had a bachelor's degree. We both had the same certification from the same place. Yeah. And then we started sending our resumes out
together.
Together.
Out together.
At first.
So in the same emails, both of them attached.
And
not one response.
Yeah,
one response.
We didn't get any response. So we were kind of really confused because every person that we talked to was like, oh, it should be really easy for you guys to get a job in Korea.
Coming at the end of February, right at the end of the semester.
Yeah, and so it was at the end of the semester, all of the schools were trying to look for teachers, and we were wondering why we didn't get any responses. And then so finally we started sending our resumes separately, and that's where we found what the problem was.
Yep. Yep.
So every single time you apply for a position in Korea, they ask to send a couple things. They ask you to send your resume, they ask you to send a picture. Those are the two most important things.
Picture being the most important.
And the picture really being the most important, come to find out. So
yeah, I think so.
We started sending our resume separately, and then all of a sudden, Jimmy,
my inbox filled up very quickly. Hers
full. He
Still
had
nothing.
interviews. He had 2-3 interviews in one day, and
yeah.
I was sitting at home doing nothing. I couldn't even get a phone call from anyone. So we were so confused, and finally I sent my resume without a picture. And
got a lot of
instantly,
responses.
at the day, I got all these responses.
Asking for a photo.
And they all said I would call them and talk to them, and so they would hear my accent, and you know, they would be like super excited, and they would be like, all right, great, let's schedule an interview. When can you come in? Can you come in tomorrow? Can you come in today? Can you come in today for an interview? And I'd be so super excited. And then right before we get off the phone, they'd say, oh, and by the way, can you please send a picture so I can send it to the school? And so I would send a picture, and then I would all of a sudden get an email saying, I'm sorry, but your interview's been canceled. And so finally I called one of the recruiters, and I was like, hey, so I'm really confused. You were really excited to come and let me interview, and then you canceled. What happened? And so he said, can I be honest with you? And I said, yeah, of course. I want you to be honest with me. And he said, well, it's because you're not white. and we were all sitting in the living room, and I remember like having this conversation with him. Do you remember this when this was happening?
Yep.
And I was like, what do you mean I'm not white? Like I'm from America. Like, you can hear me speaking. I'm from America. And they're like, yeah, but the Hagwons don't like people who look Asian. And I said, well, what do you mean specifically? And he says, well, you're Filipino. No good.
Not
no good.
Not
and I
blonde
said,
hair, blue eyes.
oh, okay. And I just hung up the phone. I was so shocked. I didn't really know what to say.
Yeah.
And I usually have a really big mouth, and I usually probably would have said something really inappropriate, but I think I was a little too shocked about it to really say anything. But yeah, so that was interesting, and I got really lucky because we were looking for an apartment, and I met gyopo, which is a term for Koreans who've grown up outside of Korea, gyopo. And she said, you know, you should work for a public school. And so I said, yeah, but you know, public schools are already finished hiring. And I got really lucky because the next day she called me and said, you know, they have 4 positions that they just posted online, and you should call them right away. And so all things ended really well, and we both have really great jobs. But I think that it was really the difference between what they think about what a foreigner is, I guess, and what they think is a native English speaker was really highlighted because I think we were interviewing together and we were, you know, so him being, you know, a typical white American.
Very typical. But now that you're there, and now that you're working, they love her, and it's going very, very well. So once they get to know you and they get past the eyes.
But I think it's much more of a Hagwon issue than a public school issue.
Yeah, I think so.
I think with a public school, they're very good
the kids
about
are
it.
going to be going to that public school regardless. The Hagwons, you know, parents will choose to send their children to that school or to another one.
Yeah,
They're
so
all over the place.
I would be really interested to hear from Hagwon owners and other people why they think it's such a bad thing to have someone who either looks Asian or, more specifically, is it just because I'm Filipino or because I'm Southeast Asian? Is it all Asians that they discriminate against, or I'm not really sure. So hopefully somebody can give us an answer.